It was my VPN all day. That was dumb. That was a waste of 45 minutes. But that's the whole point of the VPN. That's the whole point. But it's all green, so that's what I like. That's what I like to say. All green. So that's what's up. That's what's up. Alrighty. Alrighty. This is doing good. So I'll put this over here. This is alright. No, I'm not putting it right there. Not putting it right there. I'll put you on top. What happened? No, it's fine. What are you talking about? Wait, what are you talking about? I'll go back in. You right there. I can see you. No, I was moving the my tabs around on the stream. On the stream buckets. Now double check and make sure everything's running. Yes. We are back. All that. Sorry guys. Let's try this again. Nice. Let's get it. Nice. Now we're definitely live. Started 2 minutes ago. Alrighty. Let me get the Twitch one. Alrighty. Alright, everything's shared on my end now. So whenever you are ready, we get started to talking. Yes. Alrighty. What you want to go about first? What you like to talk about? You want to talk about what California doing, or you want to talk about? Well, we also got some of our favorite engines. What we like about them, what we wished about them, X, Y, and Z. But we could do whatever you want to do. Favorite engines. What's your favorite engine? I think I know what it is, but I'm not. I feel like it has changed. The way I've talked with you is changed over the years, so I know it's probably gonna be something different now. But well, if that's your favorite engine, that's your favorite engine. Well, you The Hemi or of course. Nah, you were more Hemi swap. You wanted to push the Hemi. Now you care about weight. Yeah. That's very true, unfortunately. That is true. Yeah. It's just crazy. Yeah, cuz you went through a lot of not engines, but a lot of vehicles with various different configurations of a V8. They still do. So your take is the Hemi, the 1UZ, or the VK is what I'm hearing. VK56 in particular. Now, before I don't want to cut you off. I don't want to cut you off, but what do you mean by the same? Like, explain that, because that makes no that kind of iffy about that. Mm. Yeah. Well, is it good that they stuck with port injection or multi-point fuel injector, however they want to call their own port injection versus direct injections? That's been the new technology. That's been almost like the standard as far as fueling for a lot of vehicles. Like, what do you think about, like, are you a fuel injection head? Like, you love port injection. It keeps everything clean. X, Y, and Z. It's not like people like to say the cons is you can't really do a lot of high compression like stable wise, and especially for emissions. That's where like direct injection comes in. But it's like me, I personally like them both. I like that there's an advancement in fuel technology. I like that a lot of these manufacturers, almost every manufacturer now, is going the direct injecting route to the point where now the most fuel efficient ones are usually like a what they call, like Toyota has D4S. um, BMW only had direct injection for a little bit, then they switched. Their newer motors now have both. Like, it seems like they're going the best of both worlds, and they both reach emissions. They both have good fuel economy. They don't gum out the intake runners and the intake ports, which is a good thing. So there's pros and cons of both individually. Not saying you, not saying one's better than the other. I'm only saying, why wouldn't it be good to have direct injections that you're saying? It sounds like you're saying port injection is better. Yeah. Yeah. Which sucks. you you trying to rob them. Be like, oh, it's misfiring. I don't know what it is. I gotta get it out of my driveway. I'll give you $1,000. A car worth like 10 grand. You give them a thou wow for. Jesus Christ. You could be like, sometimes you'd be like 5, 6, 700 bucks, but I get you. People don't know, and people take advantage. It is what it is. But yeah, go ahead, continue. Yeah. Oh, of course, but that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. It's just amazing how that is too. Just, I guess it's a pro and con to both, but I don't know. I'm gonna see if I could. Oh, of course. Yeah, let me pull up a photo right here. Yeah, there it is. Right there. It's just crazy how technology has progressed now. And now that obviously like systems like this where you get port and direct injection. I mean, well, is it a tuner's dream? Because there's also complexity with direct injection, and there's a limit cap. It's not easily swappable. So I like to say it's a tuner's dream as far as you could throw anything at it. The port injection you could use as methanol or nitrous or XYZ. Like the caps, you don't have to do no re-engineering. Everything's there. The only re-engineering you have to do sometimes, especially if the engines come with plastic manifolds, is how much, let's say, especially boosted cars, how much pressure it can hold before the plastic manifold cracks on the outside, on the brim, because of a lot of inlet pressure. It needs to go somewhere, and if it discharges, it has nowhere to go, and the blow valve can only do so much, the waste can only do so much to where it starts. Well, to me, it's a pro and con. Yes, it is inefficient in some ways, but also it's also very efficient in a lot of ways. For example, weight is a big one. Cost. Plastic manifolds. Plastic manifolds, as much as everyone talks crap about them, they are very durable. They, to me, from what I've noticed, like if you keep a lot of the car stock, like with like let's say water to air intercooler style cars, like almost every 2 liter 4 cylinder or 3 liter inline six from BMW, they all run. Even the V8s, the hot V twin turbo V8s, they all run water cooled air intercoolers. So they're really efficient as far as the sense what it can do in stock form because they really output it. Once people go past it, is where I have an issue on why people talk flack about the plastic manifolds. Like, oh, plastic manifolds can't hold X, Y, Z of pressure. And it's like, yes, that's true, but you're trying to make that thing go 1,000 horsepower. Of course, it can't hold that type of pressure. At that point, go aluminum or go to alloy metal. Goes along the rounds of that. Don't go plastic. But if you're keeping it stock, it does a really well job in stock form, in my opinion. That's just me, but that's just me because it's like if you run into that area of limitation, not just with turbo engines, but with let's say doing a port manifolds, like because since we're talking about port and direct injection, swapping out for methanol or swapping out for nitrous or swapping out for whatever it may be, because it can handle it no problem, but then when it starts cracking, you get methanol bleed out, and then depending on if you have a weird or you have too much hot of an engine bay, you know, it all varies. But to me, you run into that problem. Oh yeah, to me, you run into that problem where it goes too far, and it only goes too far if you keep throwing stuff into the engine bay. That's when you get the whole danger to manifold, like the OG Fast and Furious movie. That's where you get that from. Of course, of course. But now you're seeing it today, but it's not the exhaust manifold a lot, even though it can crack and could propagate and can be a problem. It's usually the intake manifold only because people are pushing the limits of a plastic manifold. you know. But I don't like when people talk ish about a plastic manifold because it has limitations. That's just me. But of course, but I think it's a great I think it's a great design. It's just a lot of people poorly misjudge it, especially when you add meth. Which is I'm not saying it's a bad thing because another thing people forget is plastic is a good what is it? Thermal separator. People keep forgetting that because like once you get the heat from the engine, it spreads. It spreads through the aluminum because yeah, it's heat soaked. But then that's why people are now figuring out how to use that newer now. Back then, no one knew, and obviously people don't know us like that. But I've always talked about how thermal efficiency is a big thing, and to run some type of like a thicker ring or something to just separate that. Not everyone's doing like a big film gasket, like a thin film gasket that can separate the mating surfaces of the aluminum intake and the head. We see it now. I see it commonly known on the B58 and S58 platform of BMW. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I've been said something about this. I think 3 years ago, 4 years ago, when BMW especially, not 4 years ago, because I'm thinking we're in 2022. So I would say that's now 6 years ago. I keep forgetting that we're 2025. But when the F80, F82, M3, M4 came out, even though a lot of people weren't getting it, people who were swapping manifolds and stuff, the biggest thing about them is thermal separation. When you go water the air in a cooler, you need some type of thermal separation. There's no there's no routing about it, which is weird because like at least with the air to air intercooler, you get so much fin charge. It's like so dense depending on where you at, and it won't mitigate it properly, but I think it does a better job versus using coolant, in my opinion, because like coolant will cool the air temperature down, but again, a lot of air to water intercoolers are so close to the manifold that although it cools it down, does it really? Type thing. So that's yeah, that's what it is. Like, which is another, which brings me. I'm bringing off topic, but the Lambo and Audi R8 air to water intercoolers, they're outside the throttle. They're like away. The manifold's already connected by itself to the throttle body. The throttle body's out, and then it goes in the air and water intercooler. I personally like that because it separates everything, versus having an air to water intercooler there and then it bolted straight into that while having the throttle body outside of it. I'm not saying it's not an efficient design, but the reason why the companies, aftermarket companies, now have to run thermal gaskets or thermal plates is because of that thermal propagation, where it now is contracting too much heat. So now they're finding significant gains with just throwing in that little plate. When it's like, if you redesign, like let's say you made that an ITB setup, that will also solve that issue. But no one's going to do an ITB setup because that's super inefficient. It's already designed really well for the factory with that setup, which is why it uses a plastic manifold because it disperses that heat a lot better, in my opinion. And I'm not even an engineer. That's just me learning about properties and materials, learning about plastics and molds and aluminums. Yeah, I should go to engineer school now that I think about it, but that's besides the point. But now back to the port injection debate. I do like it. It's just with some manifolds, some manifolds, specifically turbo manifolds, there's a limitation because of how much you can do because of what's around it. And I only say that because people immediately want to modify it. The people who leave it stock, I'm not talking about the people who leave it stock. If they leave it stock, it'll last a long time. You probably have to do it. You have probably to do an ejector every now and then because, let's face it, every car part wears, no matter what you say, unless you're a Toyota. But that's just my bias, I guess. I'm not saying Toyota doesn't wear, but I'm not saying Toyotas don't wear. All I'm saying is they last a lot. I had two of them, and I still have my one. I just left the other one in Mass, but because now I'm in Florida. But it's just they 400K on both of them. I I have yet to do a piston ring. I have yet to do. I probably have to do an ejector pretty soon, but I had to do gaskets and spark plugs and timing belts every 5 years or 100,000 miles, depending on which one comes first. Other than that, no issue. So that's just me. They rarely wear it. Camshafts look immaculate, which is odd, because even though I use synthetic fluids and I put additives to make sure everything runs, it looks like I just got it out of a parts box in Toyota, which is amazing. The quality it was back then, but yeah, parts wear. Yeah, parts wear with these injectors. Parts wear with everything else. So you're gonna swap them. If you leave them stock, it's just you run it to regular maintenance stuff. But as far as throwing a lot of power with these injectors, that's when it becomes a bigger scenario, to my opinion. But hey, it is what it is. So tying that back to the VK, since you're saying it's port or is it direct injected? Now, didn't they create a version that was port and direct injection, like the later versions, or no? You use you use that walnut blaster? Yeah, jeez. But yeah, I figured isn't that a reworked motor? It's not like it's not based off the VK45, right? Or did they have to rebuild that entire short block because of the head design? Yeah, of course. I mean, it looks really well designed if you look at the engine block. I do like the engine block architecture. I do like I do like it that it's a closed deck block. It looks like it's susceptible to boost, to be honest, but I feel like a lot of these motors that are chain driven still need an internal dry sump, unless it's like a belt driven design like this. But it's just annoying to see a race engine and they don't design something that's like BMW did it well with the what is it, the S65 and then BMW Z4 GT3, where if you look at the plate design where the oil pump goes, they took that oil pump out. They took the oil pump and that whole girdle out because there's a one piece structure that holds the crank in. They basically just drilled or designed a hole for an external pump, put the pump in where the old oil pump went, and then just ran a gear outside, and then, like it ties together. It's perfect. But I'm surprised none of these companies do that, and if they don't do it, I'm surprised none of these companies just don't build an internal, in an aftermarket, but like an internal dry sump pump solution. Like, hold on, let me see if I could. Let me search it up. P65 is what it's called. I took pictures of it before. I can't remember where, but so where this belt is. Let me see if I can find another picture. No, that's the alternator side. I wish I could see the other side. Where's the other side? Where's the other side? Dang, yo. They're just hiding everything from me. Oh, yeah, so here you go. Oh, Japanese, of course. But, alright, there you go. If you look at this right here, that's part of the plate, the bed plate design of the engine. So, people who don't know what bed plates are, a lot of older engines use crank journals, crank pins, and it's what holds the crank into the block, and then they put a girdle on top for the oil passageways. A girdle crank system is where basically the block split in half, where the crank meets, and then they slap it on top. So the way BMW designs it is BMW 65 oil. The way BMW designs it is because their old S65s were this engine design. Their old S65s are basically based on what the P65 is. And right here, if you look at this bed plate design, where this is the engine. The oil pump goes here, and it's internal. And what happens is, if I can find another one, no, I can't find another one. Right here, that's the V10. But what happens is, oh, I can't even find a bed plate. Let me see. S65 crank girdle. There you go. There we go. Now we're cooking with grease. So the oil pump that goes right here, and it meshes with the other gears. So what happens is, say they took the old one out on this bed plate design. They drilled a hole through the front. Let's see if I can find the front of it. Not really. Oh, someone built a chromoly bed plate. Nice. So right here, that's where it is. That's where the oil pump goes with the oil gears and the timing and stuff like that. Someone built a billet version of it, which looks pretty cool. What BMW did was they drilled a hole in the front of it, or not drilled a hole. They designed the hole, quote unquote. Basically, they grabbed the same design, and in the casting process, they just added a little like bevel to fit a nice ream circle so that it stays strong because you're taking all that mass out. They're gonna need to bevel it and reinforce that section, and then they put the oil pump dead smack right there where that little feed is that goes up into the block for the Vano system. So they put the oil pump right there, bolted it on, and then they just put a sump plate right on it, and then the hole goes out. I wonder if I could find P65. Let me see. No, of course it's gonna do that. Google, of course. No, because someone did it. I think the YouTube is Evolve Motoring or Evolve. I forget what it's called. They put it in a 1M or something similar to that. Yeah, Evolve. That's what it's called. Let me see. Let me mute this. Let's see here. Right there. If you can see it. Right here. So where the old that's where it literally straps onto this and that drives the oil pump and it's right there. Right smack. So where the old oil pump went with the mesh gears that drove the Vanos and all that stuff, they just created a little you can see the webbing here. They designed that to go right there so they could bolt on. They designed this baffle to not baffle, this screw and hole to strengthen it. And then they also designed this section right here where the pulley goes. So it's like a sandwich style area right there. They look at that hole, and then you can see the little bevel around it too, and that's where they designed it to go on the crank, and that's where the dry sump system goes, and then it literally just he's gonna watch him take it out, just boing, right there, and that's where it all goes. They literally just drilled a hole out basically, and they designed everything else around it. Hence, you know, and I'm surprised not a lot of other companies do that. Like if they wanted BMW wanted to be like even more creative, they could create an internal train drive here if the pump was large enough, or they probably have to extend this out here, and then they could make it drive off the crank gear, and it would have been a whole internal dry sump. That would have been ridiculous. Because the thing already, this V8 engine rests at 9,500 RPM. Wild. This particular one. Yeah, the BMW 1 has a 9,500 RPM V8 from a Z4 GT3. Imagine that with a flat plane. Imagine that with a flat plane. So much lighter. So much lighter. Imagine that with a flat plane. That would easily scream to 11. Easily. I would think. If you make a cross plane, something with heavy, what is it? Offset crank weight journal, or not weight journaling. How do I call this? Offset crank counterweights for a cross plane crank because you need them to balance them. and it's a cross-plane configuration, and you could make it still rev to 95. I can only imagine if you take off a good amount of that mass and make it flat plane. Granted, you're gonna run into a little bit of vibration, but it's still 4 liters, so they're just gonna rev anyhow. I can only imagine. And Judd, I don't know if you know Judd. They used to make Formula One engines. Way back when they do it for more of a customer base. But they grabbed one of these S60 X65s. Look at that, and made their own thing. And look, they went internally geared too. Right here, look. So they done what I thought BMW would have done, and they made in the water pump. They just used the cam gear, and they flattened that whole section. You see, they machined it. It's so much. It looks so much flatter versus that big bulk with the Vanos gears and stuff. Let's see. Let's see. Let's learn more about this. Championship winning LMP2 Le Mans makes 510 horsepower, revs at 10,000 RPM, weighs 145 kilograms, which is about a little less than 300 pounds. I'll probably say 301, 302. Let me do the math real quick. 145 times 2.2. 319. So 319 pounds. So lighter than an LS. Way lighter than an LS. Probably 30 to 40 pounds lighter than an LS. Dual overhead cam. Ridiculous. We chose the BMW S65 4-liter V8 as our base engine. Wildin'. Talk about LMP2, how Nissan used the VK and it was a 5-liter version. This thing was whooping ass. That 4-liter's crazy, man. I like it. I like it. Probably gonna do like turbo V6s. But yeah, Judd used to power a lot of the Formula One cars back, especially in their main thing was like the late '80s, early to mid '90s. They did a lot of the V8s and the V10s, along with Yamaha, Honda, and a couple others. But yeah, this is the OG. Ryan Turk has one of these in a Supra. That thing revs like crazy. I think I sent you a couple clips. Mm, just screaming. To be honest, though, really, to me, a good candidate, although it's in the thousands, but it's not in like the mid like 5,000. It's like around two to three. I think the a good V8 candidate, other than the LS, because I'm not gonna knock the LS. It's a decent platform. You find yourself a junkyard 5.3 or whatever, or like you find yourself like a an or like an issue like an all aluminum, was it the LS1 or LS2 for like 500-600 bucks. I don't, they're probably going for more now, but let's say 5 years ago they were a lot different, especially before COVID. That they were a lot different back then. What's that? Oh yeah, very cheap, very cheap. But I think the next best guess would probably be the UZ if you want a belt-driven system. As far as V8s go, it was in everything. It was in everything. The LS 430, the SC 430, the that's a 3UZ, the 4.3 liter variant. The LS, the SC, they they did a couple, I believe. No, they did a project with the IS and they just discontinued it. I think they did the GS. Yeah, they did the GS 430. And even before that, with the one UZs, there was in the LS, the GS, the SC. Um, they did it in a they did the two UZs and all the truck variants, but the UZ was just in everything. It was a widely known platform. Look at that. One UZ with trans, harness, alternator, condenser, everything. 1850. 1850. No, I think they're around the same weight. I think they're around the same weight, in my opinion. Just because it's an arrow doesn't mean it's not heavier. Nah, the UR is around 498, but the UZ, I don't think so. Google for now. The one UZ engine weighs 430 pounds or 195 kilograms. 430 pounds. All right. Let's do LS3. The LS3 weighs 418 pounds. They're 6.2 liter. So 6.2 versus 4 liter. So it's the LS3 is 10 pounds less. And I'm not saying you can't make the LS be less. You can make the LS weigh less. I'm not saying you can't. It's just in stock form, it's not all what it seems to be. Hmm. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. I mean, I get it. It's 4 liters versus 6.2, but I'm telling you. Of course, dimensionally, the LS is smaller, but if you look at it, you gotta look at the pros of it. Yes, the engine is smaller. It weighs 10 pounds less if you talk about 6.2 versus 4 liter. I get it. The only thing about it is it's push rod. It's not a good air. It's not a good air pump. I mean, it is a good air pump depending on how you use it. I think. I think as far as flow wise goes, you as far as them two only, you're not beating a UZ. You're not. And everyone makes a complaint of packaging. People forget that the cams, the two cams are driven off each other, and it's one cam gear on the intake. So yeah, it's a little wide, but if you look at it from the head side of you, it's not as wide as you think, especially with the cam gear being more right than it is left on the outsides of each engine. So let's say the V's like this. The intake cam's on the inside, not the outside. It's not like it's dual overhead cam, but it's driven off the intake gears. So it technically can be small. If I think it could fit in a lot of LS variant engines. It's just the 4 liter and the 4.3 severely underpowered, in my opinion. I think it can. It'll be a lot harder to fit a UR than a UZ. A UZ, a UZ, I think can fit where the LS can. It's just people will never do that because people love the Chevy platform, which I don't blame them. You know, I'll guarantee you, I guarantee you, I could fit a UZ in like a Corvette and still have space for a turbo kit. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you need to do rods and pistons at least. At least, I think you have to. Yeah, but I still think you need rods and pistons. It's just anytime you want to rev high and it has to handle a lot of combustion and a lot of revs, then I would always do rods and pistons. That's just even if it's just like a regular 4340 steel and a 2618 aluminum forged piston, then at least you got something there that can handle it, and your only limitations are the stress of the block, like how much the block can handle before you have to sleeve it, which that'll just be another story for itself. But I think back to the topic at hand, I think as besides the LS, which you could use to get them for cheap now, it's a little more expensive if you're looking for the Lumen variant because everyone's catching on a wave of lightweight. And even though the iron block variant is cheap, it is significantly heavier, like probably 100, 200 pounds, let's say, if that. So I feel like the next best option besides the LS, which I think they're now fairly around the price of a lot of these engines are today, as far as like 2000 goes. I say for around that price market, 2 to 3,000, you got the UZ, you got the LS, especially the LS3 in my opinion, the 6.2. Because if you try to get an LS7 for 2 grand, I want to meet you. I want to know how to do it because I love that LS7. As far as the technology in it goes, and the F what's it called? The F136, the Maserati V8 that comes automatically from the gate of Ferrari Maserati, dry sumped. It's a 4.2 liter. It has a 92 millimeter bore, so it's over squared. It can rev pretty high if you know what you're doing, and from what I saw dimensionally and what I've measured myself, you can actually fit the F430 crank and cams inside the Maserati block. So you get yourself like a cheap F430 engine type thing, which will be pretty cool. I've seen it once done, and it was actually quite interesting how you could just take the Maserati crossplane crank out and just literally throw the flat plane crank of the F430 in, and all you gotta do is measure the bearing clearances, and it just fits, which I find quite interesting. That like it's like they try to cheap out and like, oh, here you go. I'm not gonna change the block, but at least I'll put a crossplane crank in there. So like, but imagine like people like now I'm letting this news out. Now people are gonna try to find F430 cranks and cams, or like order them from the factory. I know this dude, but the 4.2 liter V8, you with the 8 HP, you love that the transmission. Yeah, nah, nah. I mean, as far as stock transmission goes, it's up there. I ain't gonna argue with this. Best transmission ever. I have to disagree with you. Yeah, because it can handle a lot. I can't. I will never knock that. Yeah, that transmission's nice. That transmission's so nice. But I would say the Maserati 4.2. I've been eyeing it a lot, and I have, like I said, I have the F-140, V12 head sitting on my toolbox, just looking at it, trying to figure out how I'm supposed to cut it up because it'll be a shame, but you know, because if or go to like, or you could just ask Callie's Crank for a custom flat plane crank that like can displace that engine up to like 4 liters, and then you got yourself another 4 liter, you know, like an Italian UZ, or the UZ is a Japanese, F136 or however they want to do it, or the Germans. I always forget the Germans about the S62 and the S65, but they're expensive. They're like around the 5 grand marker, 6 grand marker. Of course, money's everything. Money's everything here, man. Well, the short block is, but the heads are aluminum. Yeah. Well, hey, Dodge Dodge did it right. They had that 6.2 supercharge, and that thing's still an iron block. Hemi. Every one of their Hemis is iron block. It is. Fucking. But they move. They move. They're a fun little toy. To me, they're always a fun little toy. Like they can go straight. That's pretty much it. They do burnouts in that supercharged whine. That Well, you also gotta understand. You also gotta understand the market in America for a long time is straight line, straight line, straight line. But then they forget. But then they forget that there's a Nissan GTR and a Lamborghini Gallardo, Huracan, or Audi R8 just destroying the quarter miles. So like, yeah, you build a and the Viper, the Calvo Vipers. They're insane, but it's like to me, and I've talked to you about this before. I don't even think Viper is Dodge. I think Viper is Carroll Shelby. That's just me though, because if Ford didn't say no, Dodge would have never had a Viper. But Ford said no, and Dodge said yes, and history unfolded itself right after. But I was gonna say, but yeah, no. Uh, as far as stock form and what the manufacturer's doing, I like the fact that they're building like, quarter mile cars. But a lot of people who are in the quarter mile business, unless they're doing funny cars, they're not using V8s. Unless someone out there has a V8 that can go toe to toe with a GTR or a Huracan, then that'll be or the R8 or the Calvo or the Vipers built by Calvo or anyone who builds a Viper. I just say Calvo Viper because when I think Viper and I think quarter mile, I think Calvo. But that's just the way I tie it into. But no, I don't see any V8 crack in the times they do. Again, unless you're in a funny car, or you're just like, it's not a car anymore at that point. You know, like the Huracans have full interior and they're doing 7 seconds. You know, in a cage. The GTRs have full interior and they're doing 7 seconds. If you're trying to make a Hellcat do 7 seconds, you got to strip everything. I just don't think it's. It might be capable. I don't know if it'll be capable of it though. It might be. It's an iron block. I wouldn't see why not. And I'm pretty sure Dart builds a ish ton of heavy blocks for that. It's not. I'm pretty sure Dart will build. I'm pretty sure Dart will build a block for it because it's not so far off design. I know that because it's basically a 6-1. Just oh, I know. I remember building that. I remember building that. That was fun and stressful and annoying. Yeah, I know, right? Shit. That was how long has that been? That was 2021. 2021. I remember building that long ago. Well, good thing I inspected it. I'm like, oh, I gave you the green light because otherwise, no, it was a 6.1. You can see it. It's the badging on the side of the engine. They're not gonna see your truck anyhow. They're not gonna know it's your truck. Oh man, nah, it's crazy. Yeah. Ah. Yeah. Yeah. I do agree in that scenario. I guess. Hmm. Of course. Yeah, we could talk about that Sunday. We're about to reach the hour, so might as well. We could save that, but at least we got to like chat and talk about what we liked. We could cover the news on Sunday, see what's going on. But yeah, nah, we just report. Sunday's report. Thursday or Friday will be our fun thing. Something short. But yeah, thank you for joining in, sir, on this lovely discussion. Just unwind a little bit on a Friday night. Oy. We always have a bunch of TED Talks. It's always fun. It's always fun. Alrighty. Nice. But I am Rodney. Right, that man up there. You can't see my figure because it's all blurred out, but that's Sir Blocky. Yes, and